I can speak like for 5 hours, which I will not do, because I want you to ask questions, about the fact that the situation is not staying in a static position. It's changing all the time. 2 years ago, Turkey was our strongest ally in the neighborhood. What happens now? They like to lead the Muslim wall in our region, so they are talking in a different way, and Erdogan appears as if he is really not interested in the continuation of the state of Israel. He doesn't say it yet, but maybe he will. The situation is changing all the time. Many years ago, when Arafat was in power, we didn't have the problems of the Hamas. Hamas was an insignificant, when I was in the military, Hamas was an insignificant power in Palestine. Everybody ignored them. Sheikh Yassin, you remember Sheikh Yassin, which then was killed. It was not a natural death. He was not important. He was in Israeli jail, and he was not important. But now the Hamas is a very significant power because the atmosphere changed. There is a more and more tendency toward radicalism in the Middle East. More and more extreme Muslims, which you know since September 11 what they are capable of doing. So whenever we ignore the peace movement from the other side, and we don't relate to them, to make peace with them, then after a few years, we are sitting regretting that we had this chance a few years ago, and we missed the opportunity. And it happens all the time, believe me. And since the situation now is that if a Palestinian state will not be created as soon as possible, and I'm talking about a viable Palestinian state, in the West Bank first, this endangers the future of the state of Israel, because a one-state solution is a disaster and a recipe for a disaster for the state of Israel. Why? Because of two reasons. As you know, we are a Jewish and democratic state. This was the reason to create the state of Israel, because it has to be a homeland for all the Jewish people, not for other people, for the Jewish people. So since we created the state of Israel, we believe strongly that it should remain a Jewish state and it should remain democratic. No way for Israel to be democratic and Jewish if we don't have a Palestinian state as our neighbor, because we are talking about not only the demographic threat, which means that Israel will not be able to be in a few years a democratic state. A democratic state means that every person that lives in Israel is entitled to vote for the parliament, which is the Israeli Knesset. If they will have if Israel will stay democratic, and every Muslim and Arab in Israel between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea will be entitled to vote because we are a democratic state, Israel will not longer be a Jewish state. It's not easy to deal with it. I'm not saying this is a piece of cake. And if you want, I will talk about the new approach of the Hamas. But the real threat to Israel comes from the more east country, which is called Iran. This is the real threat for Israel. And then the second threat for Israel comes from, yes, Lebanon, which is the same. From Lebanon and from Syria. Why? Because all Israel can be covered by missiles coming from Lebanon now. All Israel. In the second Lebanon war, I was in Tel Aviv, and the missiles didn't reach Tel Aviv. Now they are reaching Tel Aviv. The missiles from Syria are reaching Eilat, which is the southern part of Israel. So this is not the security threat of Israel, because if we are talking about, and Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu said it, and it's also in the Geneva Accord, by the way. If we are talking about a Palestinian state, we are talking about a state that doesn't have heavy armors, which is really not a very big threat to the Israeli country, to Israel. Which is, what is the threat? Syria is a threat. Lebanon, Hezbollah, basically, I'm talking about Hezbollah. And Hezbollah is a threat because they are now the most significant military power in Lebanon. I don't know what will happen after I think nothing, about the Hariri investigation, the murder of Hariri, which was the Prime Minister of Lebanon, and his son is now the Prime Minister. But I'm sure that Hezbollah will continue to be the most powerful force in Lebanon. And I didn't talk about the Hamas yet, which are influenced by Iran. Iran is not dangerous because of the nuclear power, only because of the nuclear power. It is dangerous because this way, when they will gain the nuclear power, they will be more influential in the area. And everybody here, I'm sure, read all the publications, whatever. And it was written there, very clear, that Saudi Arabia and all the countries that are producing oil urge the United States what to do? To attack Iran. Because they will be the most influential power in the area. And by the way, also Europe is not very calm about the nuclear abilities of Iran. Because the range of the missiles of Iran, they reach Paris. I'm not talking about Russia, because I think they can reach Moscow as well. So if they want to play this game, it's a problem for all the world. And in our region, they are supporting Hezbollah, they are supporting Hamas, they are supporting the Islamic Jihad, which are very dangerous, I mean in terror terms. So this is the threat for Israel, I mean Iran and all the other groups. The other thing is, since this is so dangerous that Iran will have the nuclear power and be the most significant power in the Middle East, we have to think what is the alternative.